Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Substack Trade Group, and this is your end of day market recap for Monday, April 22nd. A big week of earnings this week. We'll talk about a couple names that reported after the close and what we can kind of take away from some of those names. But let's get to the price action first. You had the Qs actually finish. They outperformed the S&P a little bit today, up 1%. So nice comeback from Friday's price action. SPY was just shy of that, up about 90 basis points. IWM up a little bit more than Qs were, up 1.1%. Also, microcaps had a pretty good day. All of these rallied from the open. Didn't close exactly on the highs of the day, so maybe a little bit of selling or profit taking for day traders at the end of the day, or maybe it's something other. We don't know. It's kind of it's tough to formulate a complete opinion on one day of price action because one day is not a trend, but no doubt it's a step in the right direction. Risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through is for information purpose only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. Please read the full risk disclaimer right there. I'll go through some of the outperforming areas. We'll talk a little bit about where there's been some strength in this market recently, but the semis were in there too. Semis were up 1.9% for the day, and they rallied 1%. So there, nothing really bad if you kind of bought the dip in the semis group today, because overall that group did okay today. Let's get to the S&P chart, because there's two things that I want to talk about with the S&P. Is that so first of all, first green candle. So like round of applause for seeing the first green candle in the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 red candles in a row, and finally a green candle there. However, when I wrote my morning note this morning, the phrase that I used was kind of stuck in the middle. We're decently below the value area, which is still about 2% higher. And then we've got like a lower virgin point of control down here, and really kind of just looking for some direction. And it's tough to find that, being that you're so far away from resistance, and that's the next support level. And what I've been focusing on is watching this 5-period moving average. I did a nice illustration of that over the weekend, just talking about how that's particularly useful to kind of see if buyers are back in control, or if sellers are still in control. And for the day, I guess you can kind of say that the sellers won out, because they did not get, or just kind of inconclusive. I don't want to say buyers or sellers won out for the day, but just kind of inconclusive for the day because price did not reclaim the 5-period moving average. Now, again, it may take a little time. I know everybody wants everything neat and clean in one day. I do too, so that you've got some things that some action that you can take on. But for me, what I was also watching, and when it's a little bit confusing like that on the daily chart, sometimes you can find some signals off of the 1-hour chart. So I think that this was good enough for me personally to try a couple trades. And I'll talk about what exactly I did for the day. But note that as we were descending lower over the last few weeks, and we can even back this up a little further. And again, this is something that I've illustrated a few times now, but once we broke, these moving averages can kind of act as your barriers to like trend reversals. So for example, like getting rejected in here, getting rejected in here, here, and today looked a little bit different. Now, again, we didn't finish on the exact highs, but at least it's a break over this and making some progress. And you could see we did break into the value area, which is not where we started in overnight futures last night. So this does trigger what's called the 80% rule. And there's, so this is based on value area studies. I didn't make this up. We're just borrowing, something from, from written value area studies that basically say, this value area, by the way, is based on, roughly 1 standard deviation of all of last week's price activity, right? And sometimes like you can visualize this a little bit better if we turn on the volume profile so that you can see for this period, right? So there's the volume all from last week. right, in this blue shaded area. So if you take really like around one standard deviation, I don't want to give away all the secret sauce here of how we come up with the value area, but basically it gives us some really good support and resistance. And the bullish or bearish 80% rule is once you break into the value area, establish yourself, there's an 80% chance that you can go from one side to the other. So for now, and as long as we hang above this, and if you're reading some of my notes today, you heard me quote this several times today, 5027.75. As long as we stay above that, then I'm going to like press a little bit to the long side in the short term. If we break below that, right, then you know that this market dip correction is not over with. I mean, it's very simple, right? And that's really what we try to use some indicators for, is just to keep it simple. It's not really it's not to predict, right? Everybody wants to know, like, okay, does this mean we go higher or does this mean we go lower? I don't know, but I will be long against this level, and then you make a decision based on that, right? That's all trading is, by the way, is, hey, you have an idea and you're going to go long versus a particular level, and if that level doesn't hold, then you get out of your trade, right? There's not many more things to trading. Is you decide to go long versus something, you stick with the trend for as long as you can. In this sense, we've got more of a complicated situation because we've got a dip, which I think, by the way, is very good. I think people kind of forget about this and they get very they get bogged down in, like, just, I guess, zooming in a little bit, which we are zooming in this chart. But I saw last week people were charting the VIX and, oh my God, is this a change? Is this a major change? No, it's a bout of volatility, and you're going to get a couple corrections a year on average, and sometimes they usually go between 4 to 10%. Usually, and I think depending on what index you look at, we're down to like 5%. So again, it's not to say that it's completely over with, and I've got my level to watch here to see if we hold on to that. But these are not bad things. Like provided that once we do, and you do have to be patient and wait for the price action, and that's why I went over the daily chart and the 5-period moving average. But provided those things are regained, then you've got a nice dip to go after, right? And would you want to be buying some dips, or would you want to be again, provided that they're shallow dips and that they're dips and uptrends, which is basically what we have for now, right? And again, just to kind of give perspective, we got all these over here, but all the logos. But I mean, there's nothing wrong with this, right? We were ascending for a while, and let's see if notice that this also lines up pretty well with this. So let's not be dramatic, and let's understand that the market's going to dip from time to time. Qs, we could kind of just go through this, even though, so right now, we're going to have a lot of earnings reports. Notice that this has this went further down, over the last week, and it's still decently below that 5-period moving average, and there's still a virgin point of control down here. So I'm not really going long the Qs here, or a lot of tech names. I think tech will need to have some good earnings reports, and we'll see what they get. But for now, like, what I saw last week was just relative weakness, and I'm not in love with this chart. 1 hour, I don't think this made it into the value area for the week. No, it didn't. So again, this is not really where I want to be setting up as of now. Now, if we break above 420.67, then I can kind of look at a little bit more, stocks that are in the Qs. But for now, that's not the case. And here's IWM. Just to kind of round this out a little bit. Again, short term, notice that we actually went all the way through to the top of the value area, and that resistance is 195.90. So, nice little turn, and IWM was showing some strength towards the end of last week, right? So again, this did get over its 5-period moving average. So nice move above the 5-period moving average. And really, that level to watch would be the next, setting up for possibly the next, movement higher. And again, that's 195.90. So again, I'm not ruling that the small caps, for the week maybe lead, but they've got to get through that particular level. A couple other things to note, and I have this on another chart. Okay, so there's two ways that we're going to look at breadth. And why do we want to be looking at market breadth? Well, because we want to know what's going on under the hood, considering that the S&P has 500 stocks in it and market cap weighted. We want to know if more are going up or more are going down. And also, when you associate volume too with the up versus down movers, sometimes you can get a little bit of a clue about what's happening. So, one thing that was kind of interesting was that the breadth, the worst breadth, and I went over this in the weekend video for members too, but look at how bad the breadth was here, right? That was over a week ago. That was on that Friday move, not last Friday, but the Friday before. So overall, like breadth was actually improving as the week went on. Now, of course, things like semis going down, and big tech names, right? They're going to skew the overall index. And I think, when a lot of people were saying, hey, well, if you look at RSP or if you look at what the Dow Jones did, right, this wasn't, you could see that the equally weighted S&P already started to kind of bottom out a little bit here in the middle of last week. And it was just really tech, consumer discretionary growth stocks as well that really were particularly weak towards the end of last week. Value stocks did quite well. So I think it's important to kind of keep an eye on what the RSP is doing. Also note what Dow stocks are doing, right? Dow stocks were flat last week, right? So they didn't even decline last week. And you could see now they're going to have some resistance to deal with here at 385. And I would be watching to see if that gets rejected. But I think that's very notable, where the weakness was in this market and how it impacted the overall indices. A couple other things to note too, when you look at 4-week new highs versus new lows in the S&P. So let's look at this chart first. Now this isn't updated for today. There's 1-day lag, but notice that there really hasn't been sorry, I should say this differently. For when the new lows peaked, right? That was in the middle of last, or it was kind of like the beginning of last week. Since then, the new lows have actually been declining, and the market's been getting a little bit stronger. Now, it's tough to flip it like right away, and so if you look today, there was 34 new highs. And only 12% of the S&P made 4-week new lows, 59 names. So if you go back to this chart and look at this, right, that's going to be the least. So this continues to improve. So again, when you have a move like this, right, you could look at these other situations too. They don't just automatically like flip to all of a sudden, there's more new highs and new lows. It takes some time. So again, you have to be patient with this, right? You're not just going to get one day where all of a sudden when there's I think at one point there was like over 50% of the S&P was making 4-week new lows. It's not going to be 1 or 2 days where that flips back to all of a sudden everything's making a 4-week new high, right? Stocks, they go up and they go down. In terms of like the chart like rolling. And so that's all we can kind of say for now, is that the market is telling us that it's getting a little bit little by little since the middle of last week. It's been getting a little bit stronger under the hood. So we'll have to see if that continues. What we don't want to see is those new lows really start to pick up again, but we want to see this progress like we saw today, where it's getting a little bit more even, right? And you could follow this along. I put this out every midday. You can get a note and you can kind of see how this goes. Right, so I did bring up the Substack that I send out midday, and it's a small fee to get all of this, but I believe this comes for free. You just can't see my positions and you can't see our watch list. But this is what I was referring to last. This is the 16th. So last week, 52% of the S&P was making 4-week new lows, right? And so that's a huge number. There was one new high and 262 new lows. All right, so there's that. You could see all the names. I had to really stretch the screen so that you could see that. And here's what it looks like today. Right. So again, it's improved. We're not there yet. We're not out of the woods, and that's why we look at the price action as well. All right. So let's get to a couple single stock movers. I won't bring up our watch list that we put together over the weekend, but so far watch list is doing pretty decently. Again, if you're a member, you're able to see that, and you're able to see we strike that. I send it out so that um, it is you could see real time, where that watch list is doing. We mark to market it as I send it out, and provide members. But the financials have been on fire, and you could come up with your own reasons for this. But I would also say that when you see Wells Fargo and JP Morgan having some really good price action, it's tough to really get that bearish about the market when you see Wells Fargo do this, right? This should be like somewhat economically sensitive. Look at the recovery that we've seen in JP Morgan as well. Goldman Sachs was a name that I did was not on my watch list, but it's in the TTG trend portfolio. Right, this is a name that I've had an eye on too. It had decent earnings, but very, very strong. And there's about five or six more names I could go through to explain like how strong the financials have been. But I don't think that that's a negative right now. Schwab made a new 52-week high today too. So a lot of strength in this group. Also energy. We talked about both energy and financials and Friday's, I believe Friday's video. Those are at least two charts that I tweeted out on Saturday morning. But energy's making a nice move. And here's IEO, which is equally weighted. I like this a little bit better than XOP, right? Starting to kind of make the turn. I was long some Weatherford. I unwound this today just because I got the turn that I was looking for on the daily chart. I am on the daily chart. It reports earnings this week, so I think that's why I took the trade off. But ultimately, some nice moves in the energy space. Tech, I want to talk about just for a minute, because I don't think that this move, look at the move that you saw today in tech, still up 1%, but has a lot of work to do. And if you look at a couple names that reported after the close today, right, it just tells you that I be patient with the semiconductors, right? I know everybody loves this, growth traders, they love the semiconductors, right? They, they got really hooked, I think. And I try to talk a little bit about this in the weekend video, or sorry, in Friday's video, talking about like don't fall in love with certain names, right? They can get overcrowded, and the semis got extremely overcrowded. Let them back and fill a little bit. For me, like I've kind of been through this before, and I don't need to go right back into some names. So you could let this group cool off a little bit. It's okay. Now there's still going to be day trading opportunities. I think Nvidia had an inside day today, but I don't think it really made any major up move considering what it did last week, right? It may consolidate for a little bit, and again, maybe provide some day trading opportunities. But again, let this group kind of in my opinion, right, I'm not telling you what to do, but it's okay for this group to kind of go out of favor for a little bit, right? And it's not like there's not other setups out there. All right, so we'll probably end the video around this time frame. PDD was a nice catch. This was a name. How did I find this name this morning? I think I had an alert. Alerts really help, by the way. Sending alerts on certain things. PDD was a name that I traded a while ago, and I'm always going to stick to names that are in uptrends. For as many people talk about Alibaba on Twitter, and Alibaba's in a downtrend. There could be plenty of time to trade Alibaba once it actually gets out of a downtrend, but it's kind of dead to me until it does something interesting. And I don't call like a $3 move like, oh my God, I caught it, victory lap. I want to be in something for longer than a day, or for because this thing only goes up for like a couple days and then it goes right back down to the downtrend. So there's nothing to really get excited about there, unless it starts to get above its 200-day moving average. PDD is a different story. It's in an uptrend, and look at the move it made. So you will often find that names that are in uptrends in a group showing relative strength versus the overall group, there's something more to that. SE had a nice day. I did not catch this one, but this was a heck of a move. And this got an upgrade today by Bank of America. Note that I believe it took out this upside VPOC. So still a nice day. Broke through its value area, but didn't go too far from there. All right, guys, that's it for today's video. Many more stocks to kind of go over, but I'm going to try to keep it somewhat simple for today's end of day video. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow. Hope to see you in the trading room. My goal is always to be in front of everybody else in terms of spotting some of these trade setups and spotting new trends like we've done in financials and so on and so forth. Here's where you go to be a member, TribecaTradeGroup.com, and you go to our service page to sign up for a month. I would check it out for a month, see if you like it, provide some feedback to me, and we'll go from there. Have a great night, everybody.